why can't women go for mechanical engineering? It was more like, why not? Everybody says women can't do it, so I want to do it. So it's that rebellion attitude a little bit helped. My first job was with AT&T Bell Labs, and how did I get it? Is really just applying for it. So it was a very rigorous process. I was working in Columbus, Ohio campus of Bell Labs. The women population was maybe 2-3% of the overall population. The game that she talks about, obviously using analogies, that the corporate game is poker and women come in the corporation to play rummy. And obviously, unless you understand poker, you're not going to really progress and succeed in the corporation. If I want to succeed in a career, I need to learn how to play poker. And I have to say that men really helped me learn poker and poker's games, right? So even though I say it's a struggle, I would say it's a struggle against the male-dominated culture and not against men, because men really helped me. So my bottom line was ask for help, and when you ask for help, you'll get it. I kind of think about Mark Twain at that time. It's like they didn't know that it was impossible, so they did it. People always learn quickly from their failures as opposed to reading about it. Everybody cannot be a leader. So along with the leader, you have to be a good follower as well. So, we talked about communication, culture, leadership, followership. And another really important thing for me is visualization. Hard skills get you the job, get you into the door. Soft skills help you keep the job. Soft skills help you to move up in your career. Because I even talked in the book the difference between a career and a job. Then I'm always out of my comfort zone. I'm always doing something I've never done before. And that's where you get your more revolutionary kind of career. Well, comes with it some kind of stress, some level of risk, some level of strain. But every time you push your comfort zone, there is risk involved. You proactively really need to take a decision, because if you don't, time will take it for you, or somebody else will take it for you, which may not be the decision that you wanted or would have liked. Yes, we can survive, not only survive, thrive. We just have to put our mind to it.
Welcome to What's a Pro, where we dive into the journeys of professionals from all walks of life. Today, we have the honor to speaking with the trailblazer in the field of engineering and the inspiration to many. Our guest is one of the first women engineers in the USA, having immigrated from India in the 1970s. She has not only broken barriers in a predominantly male industry, but also paved the way for future generations of women in STEAM. After a remarkable career filled with achievements and pioneering contributions, she has transitioned into a new chapter as an author, sharing her life story and the valuable lessons she has learned along the way. Please join me in welcoming Srimati Vinaya Gore, an extraordinary engineer and now an inspiring author who will share her journey from overcoming cultural and professional challenges to becoming a respected figure in her field. We are thrilled to learn from her experiences, insights, and the wisdom she has gained throughout her remarkable career. Please welcome Srimati Vinaya Gore. Welcome to What's a Pro.
Thank you.
Tell us what made you pursue engineering, especially mechanical engineering, which is not very women friendly. That too in like early 90s, early 70s, 80s, right?
And I think I have to go back a little bit in my childhood and how I grew up to really answer the question. There's several things that I feel are like standout things that come to my mind. The very first one was my parents really allowed me to think for myself and really think independently and not necessarily just follow something because they said so. And that gave me, let's just say, like wide berth to think about things. And in addition to that, you know, I was a very, very avid reader. And obviously, there was no issue, no matter what I read. They did allow me to read novels, magazines, um, you know, the autobiographies, really a lot of variety of things they allowed me to read. That also really got a lot of curiosity in my mind when I'm reading about different places and things and people. I'm like, what would that be like? How about if I go there, if I visit? So this curiosity coupled with really allowing, if not encouraging us to encouraging me and my sister both actually to think for ourselves, make our own decisions. In addition to that, just like all other kids, I was always curious and asking questions about why. Why is this? Why can't I do that? What's this? Just question after question after question. And a lot of times parents just shut the kids up. It's like, stop asking questions, right? But my parents really answered as many questions as they could. But they never stopped me saying, okay, don't ask any more questions. And this whole idea about why this, why do I want to do this? Really kind of all these three different things came together. And in some ways, I feel like I was a little bit of rebellion, maybe, or a more kind of out of the box thinker, essentially. Um, Also, another thing that helped in the overall situation is our very close neighbor was a Parsi family. And in India, that really meant that not only I grew up in the culture I grew up in, I also had another culture very closely connected, so close that I called my friend's mother and father as mommy and daddy, and she called my parents as Ai and Baba. That's how close we were. So all those things put together uh, really wanted me to go in STEM direction as opposed to biology. My dad gave me my left brain, and I guess my mom gave me my right brain for languages and so on. So this is kind of my direction all the way from middle school, high school, and then wanted to go for mathematics oriented topics. So engineering was like, okay, let me give it a try. I think I'm going to like it. And thinking like that, and it's like, why can't women go for mechanical engineering? It was more like, why not? As opposed to saying, I do want mechanical engineering. I did want math oriented, but hey, everybody says women can't do it, so I want to do it. So it's that rebellion attitude a little bit helped, or kind of pushed me in that direction.
Great.
But I'm glad I did that. I mean, even though I was the only girl student in my class at that time, that really allowed me to learn a lot of new things, especially working with boys. Um, Allowed me also kind of see the difference between a science college and the engineering college. I really enjoyed doing a lot of workshop kind of activities. They were very hard in the beginning, but it's like, okay, I have decided I'm going to go for mechanical engineering, which means I need to learn how to do it. So it was rebellion, and then I made a decision, so I got to follow through. So that's how I ended up in the mechanical engineering.
Nice. So, when you say difference between science college and engineering college, right? What kind
Mhm.
did you see?
Well, the difference was more social, right? More social and a little bit funny as well, because our colleges were pretty much across from each other. Walton College and Willingdon College, Willingdon being my science college. And Walton had very few women or girls. So all the guys from Walton would just, come out to the science college, right? Okay, let's figure out which girls do I like. In Marathi, what we call line marne, right? In English, I would say flirting. so so it was kind of, on the receiving end of that. But as soon as I went to Walchon College, I was one of them, right? So they were like protective. I was no longer the flirting object, right? Now I was part of that elite group of going to Walchon College. So that was more social and fun kind of experience being on the both sides of the spectrum. But other than that, it was just a different culture and a different set of things that I needed to learn. But this social culture was funny. Was really a lot of fun. We talked about that quite a bit with my friends.
Yeah. So you grew up in Sangli, right? Sangli, Maharashtra.
Yes, I grew up in Sangli in Maharashtra, a pretty small town. All my education is in Marathi medium. My high school, all the way actually. I mean, India, in colleges in India, yes, our textbooks are in English, but we don't always speak English, as you know. We still speak in Marathi. Some of the teaching is like mixed Marathi and English, but pretty much I would say my background is education in Marathi.
Right. So, how did you come to US and how did you find your first job in US? How did you start working? Like, it's complete change from coming from Sangli to US and then
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the first big change was Sangli to Germany and Germany to US. Um, but in Germany, I was still had not completed my engineering degree. So I was working more like an intern and learning new things and studying new things like electronics, which was really not heard of in India back in 73, 74. So I was manually building printed circuit boards during those days when what's a diode, what's a transistor, those were like basic questions for us, right? And I also audited a lot of classes in computer engineering because IT did not exist at that time. And so the classes were related to more hardware side of computer. Uh, and so that was more exposure to electronics and computer science or computer engineering. But when I came to the US, I really decided to go for my master's. And instead of going straight master's in engineering or master's in mechanical engineering as a continuation from my bachelor's, I decided to go for master's in general engineering using computers. My title of my master's in engineering, that was application of computers in the field of engineering. So I could take classes in chemical engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, mathematics. And my project was really what we would call biomedical engineering today, which related to, which was in the Department of Neurobiology. And really developing a 3D brain cell model on a computer screen. So I had a variety of engineering topics. And in a way, I'm really glad I didn't go for straight masters in mechanical engineering, but general engineering, because that again opened my doors, quite wide. And this curiosity that I can, or I would say that I built from very early on, really just expanded in terms of wanting to know more, wanting to learn more. And that really helped the philosophy of learning, but also what I learned and implement what I learned in my later life. Definitely that helped me.
nice. So you studied in three different countries, India, Germany, and US.
Yes, and the US,
So what difference
absolutely.
do you see in all these teaching systems?
Um, the Indian education is a little bit more traditional, I would say. The curriculums are very fixed, and you really don't have a lot of flexibility. The electives, let's say, right? During the 4 years of the engineering college, we may have one or two electives at best, and that's it. So it was a very regimented kind of system. German system is lot more flexible than India, but German system got its own regimentation as well. Because I was in Germany when I had not completed my bachelor's. I had completed 5 semesters and 3 more to go, but they would not, absolutely not recognize what I had done in India, and they would want me to start from the beginning. But in Germany, the options were more options were available, meaning like closest I can say is the Indian way of degree and diploma. So in the US, I would say like a vocational school versus grad school or regular college. So a lot more options were available in Germany for all German students. And my experience in the US, again, I think there's a lot more flexibility because for my master's program, as I wanted what's called a student design major in the university where I was, which is in Akron, Ohio. So my advisor and I entered mechanical engineering and go for this general engineering. And we presented our plan to the dean of the graduate school, and got his approval. So I would have never gotten that in India.
So when you moved to USA, how did you get your first job?
Um, my first job was with AT&T Bell Labs, and how did I get it? Is really just applying for it. I mean, Bell Labs typically does not advertise in newspapers or whatever, and I'm talking newspapers since during those days it was newspapers. But Bell Labs, I knew about Bell Labs. Well, all engineering students knew about Bell Labs, and everybody wanted to work there, so we just applied, and it was stroke of luck. I got it. I mean, there was a very rigorous interviewing process. It wasn't like I just applied and I got it, because there was a big, long questionnaire, like almost, I don't know, 10, 15 page long questionnaire that you had to answer in very, very detail. And then about 2 days of interviews back to back to back to back. I mean, I talked to, if I recall correctly, it was a long time ago. I'd say it was a long time ago. I would say about 7 or 8 people that I talked to. And so it was a very rigorous process. And since again, Bell Labs was the think tank for engineers, we wanted to get their job, and I was lucky enough to get it. So it was all because I applied. I mean, it's really as simple as that.
Right. So what are the biggest challenges you face there at your first job? Being an immigrant, like, it's male dominant field.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I was not aware of it, obviously, because I thought, okay, I have a master's degree, I got a job, right? I mean, it was really as simple as that. But when I started the job, I realized that I was working in Columbus, Ohio campus of Bell Labs. It's relatively smaller campus, but even with that, I expected to see a lot of role models, women role models. I saw none at that time. And the women population was maybe 2, 3% of the overall population. And in the late 70s, early 80s, it was just the beginning of women getting into careers. What I mean by that is through the 70s, most women, when they worked outside of home, they were either nurses, they were teachers. If they worked in the career or corporations, they were more administrative types of jobs. And true career women really came about mid 70s and so on. But very few were in the engineering or technology field. A lot of them were in sales and marketing and some other, let's say, softer disciplines, right? So, but regardless, none of us had really any kind of roadmap, right? We had to kind of find our own path. Um, what I experienced, or more like, let me say, I read a book that made tremendous influence on my career. And the book is titled The Games Mother Never Taught You. And the game that she talks about, obviously using analogies, that the corporate game is poker and women come in the corporation to play rummy. And obviously, unless you understand poker, you're not going to really progress and succeed in the corporation. And just to give you an idea what poker is, or obviously people aren't going to play poker in the corporation, but the conceptually is poker really is a mind game, right? So regardless of a good or bad hand you have, you need to make everybody else believe that you got the best hand. So they fold and leave the table. And as a winner, you collect all their chips because everybody's betting on their hand. In the corporate world, those chips really mean money, influence, and power. So, so the boys really grew up um, essentially assuming and expecting they have the chips. And they grew up with the attitude or the philosophy that winning is the only thing. And the girls were growing up more like, I don't want to say play house, but play patty cake, right? They were kind of um, encouraged to adapt. They are encouraged to not make war, but make peace. But boys were playing rough sports like American football, or I should just say football, and they had mentors. So it's really very, and I'm going to say white male dominated field, not even male dominated, because black men and white men um, had some differences in terms of culture and expectations and the opportunities. So that was one of the first things I realized, that okay, if I want to succeed in a career, I need to learn how to play poker. And because that's really what it is. I mean, the situation was such that we were even told, we meaning the girls or the women, were told that we should wear blouses with a tie because tie is a symbol of male virility. And I'm going, wait a minute, if poker is a mind game, what's tie going to do for me, right? So it's like I had to find my own vocabulary, power symbol, because when men are playing poker, they really are using what I would call vulgar language. But that's the language they used. Even today, they use it. They use certain nonverbal or verbal signals, the behaviors, the power symbols, like we're talking about a tie, right? So, and I have to say that men really helped me learn poker and poker's games, right? So even though I say it's a struggle, I would say it's a struggle against the male dominated culture and not against men because men really helped me. And along the way, obviously, I had to build my own image, but there are four different roles I would say were very critical for my success and for my learning. One was ally, one was sponsor, the third one was mentor, and the fourth one was a sounding board. So, what I would experience is I'm in a meeting, right? And if I'm saying something, we're talking a specific topic, and I would give an idea X, let's do this. I was either completely ignored or men will say, ah, we've done this before. There's nothing to talk about. But if a man brings the same idea in 5 minutes, 2 minutes, people will say, oh, that's a great idea. Let's talk about it and see if it's feasible. So, under those kind of conditions, I need an ally. And what that means is somebody who has this male privilege, right? Growing up, or who is assumed to know poker, stand up for me and say, wait a minute, let's see what Vinaya has to say. Maybe it's a good idea. Let's hear her out. So those are the allies that really helped me. So they publicly supported me. Um, Mentor is somebody I would call this individual like a lighthouse, right? So they would give me feedback. Sometimes I didn't like their feedback, but still important feedback. They would help me understand my strengths and weaknesses. So let me give you an example of a mentor. I mean, I had a large network of mentors and allies that I developed over the years. But just an example of a mentor, one of my mentors said to me, "You need to be Muggsy." And I'm like, "What's that?" And Muggsy Bogues, during that time, was one of the basketball players, played in the NBA, National Basketball Association. And he was a steals leader for a long, long, long time, quite a few years. He was 5'3", which is the shortest for basketball. I think he was probably the shortest even today, who ever played professional basketball. And what he did was his perceived disadvantage of height, he turned it around and make it an advantage. Because what he would do, that the big guys, right, they would kind of raise their hands and he would run under their hands or between their legs and steal the ball. So that's how he became a steal leader. And my mentor said to me that, look what Muggsy did. And he said, you are always going to be perceived as Asian and a woman. There's nothing you can do, right? So as soon as people say you're an Asian and a woman, they have a stereotypical square, right? Okay, so Vinaya is going to do this, Vinaya is going to say this. So, so he said, do something totally different that doesn't fit in their square or in their perceived expectations. You put them off balance and they don't know what to do with you, and you can stand out. So your perceived weakness in this case is being Asian, being a woman, and how to work around it is an example of a mentor who helped me. Another role I mentioned is the sponsor, and that role really means is somebody who is behind the screen, much higher level in the organization than I would be, much larger visibility in terms of strategy and where is the organization going, and therefore recommending me for a position or an assignment or a job that otherwise nobody would even think about giving it to me. But he would be speaking for me and say, she has similar experiences, or she's great learner. So let's give it a try and give her that assignment, because that's the only way you can get some of the plum assignments, right? So my sponsors helped me there. And the fourth role I mentioned was the sounding board. So if I'm thinking about something, problem solving, right? So if I'm thinking about it and I don't have a fully baked solution, and you are, let's say, my sounding board. So I could say, hey, Gayatri, could you hear me out and give me your immediate reaction? I mean, just instant, because I don't have a fully baked solution, but I want to bounce it off of you, right? And so the person I'm talking to is not judging, but just giving me like quick thing. It's like, hey, you said something and something didn't make sense. So that was very helpful. And another part of that I realized, but later on necessarily, I would say, not necessarily during that time, is when I speak and hear what I said through my own ears, somehow it works in a different part of the brain and not just me thinking by myself. And doing this sounding board kind of discussion with my friends also helped me a lot. So my bottom line was ask for help. And when you ask for help, you'll get it. But if you don't open your mouth, you're not going to get help. But one thing is, I am going to make lots of mistakes, and I did tons of mistakes. So my attitude was always get back on the horse. You're going to fall down, but get back on the horse, but keep reins in your hand, because that's the most important thing. Because why am I doing something that old why that I grew up with shows up its ugly head every now and then and says, think about why you're doing it. That's why this keeping the reins in your hand becomes very important for me.
So you mentioned your mentor told you to do something out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you break that box? How did you what did
Uh, Lots of mistakes. I mean, literally. I mean, let me give you an example that in Bell Labs, I was asking my manager for sponsoring me for MBA, because that's one of the things I learned along the way that this is a very engineering think tank organization, great, fine, but this environment was changing and it needed to understand business. So I thought I should get for MBA. And I asked my ally network, what do you think? And everybody was like, no way, no how. Because if you did this, they will consider you as not interested in technology. And so I talked to one of my mentors, and he used some very, I would say, weird terminology, right? He said, opinion is like an asshole. Everybody got one. And he goes, why do you want to do it? How will company profit, or how will the company get the benefit of helping you or sponsoring you for MBA? Think from that perspective. Think from their perspective, not just yours, but their perspective. And then think about should you and should you not want to ask your boss to sponsor you. I kind of think about Mark Twain at that time. It's like they didn't know that it was impossible, so they did it. And that's how I was really kind of saying, you know what? The worst thing they can say is no, right? Or any not just MBA as an example, but in any case, worst thing they can say is no. Well, that's there anyway right now, right? So if I can kind of explain why I want to do it, how is it helpful to me as well as how is it a win-win, right, for me and a company? Um, Let me give it a shot. And I'm not going to say that I succeeded every time. I did make mistakes, and I found some people, mentors, any of those four roles, who gave me second chances, who helped me understand that as a leader, it's my job to create an environment that people can fail and learn from their failures, because I feel people always learn quickly from their failures as opposed to reading about it, let's say. Um, but you want to make sure you're not making the same mistake over and over and over again. That becomes a very critical thing. But yeah, learning and failing and learning from our failures becomes hand in hand kind of experience for me all along the way.
Right, nice. So before we go further, can you tell us about your job profile? What exactly you did at Bell Labs?
At Bell Labs, I had many, many different profiles. I started as an engineer like everybody else, but I was part of the leadership continuity program. So they were really growing future leaders, high potential future leaders. And part of being in that program, they wanted us to get a very wide experience in the organization. So I went to manufacturing after R&D. I did a lot of program management, which was brand new at that time as a part of R&D. And my programs were multi-functional, as well as my program team was multi-organizational layers, very heterogeneous. Then I went to manufacturing, joint venture planning. So that was a new experience for me, manufacturing as well as joint venture planning. And I also did that work in the Asian countries, or in what we used to call APAC at that time, Asia Pacific. Five or six different countries I worked in. I did global customer support for two business units within Lucent, within AT&T, because Lucent Technology and AT&T, at some point in time, Lucent separated from AT&T, and my career went to Lucent. But my profiles were AT&T to Lucent, all tied to Bell Labs. So I did global customer support. Then I moved to Europe and I built services business around the telecom products. So telecom product based services business in Europe. So those would be like four different verticals within a company that I was involved in terms of profile. And later on, my job profile even changed a little bit different as well once I left AT&T and Lucent Technologies.
Wow. Those are like vast variety of profiles.
Yes, vast variety. Because later on, I also changed my industry vertical from telecom to financial services. I had, let's see, financial services, marketing services, healthcare services, um, and what? No, those were the three primary industry verticals that I added to my portfolio. And in those portfolios, I was working in corporate as a senior director VP, but also as a management consultant, because later on I started my own consulting business and I was doing consulting, collaborating with some other consulting organizations as well. So, yeah, my profile is definitely significantly varied, I would say.
So, I read your book. In the book, you mentioned about soft skills. So,
Yes,
can you tell us more about soft skills? What kind of soft skills we need to climb up the ladder, the corporate ladder?
sure. I mean, soft skills is a kind of general term, right? And I would translate that saying dealing with people or working with people. Because when you talk about soft skills, the very first one becomes important is communication. Obviously, communication, language, culture, because my experience is global. But even if it was not global, let's say, Ohio versus New Jersey, they're not the same cultures. It's one is very conservative, which is Ohio, and when you go into New Jersey, New York area, it's very different. Minnesota culture is another different culture, and these are even three cultures within the U.S., right? So understanding cultures, communication, I mean, if you go to Google on Google, will give you a long list of soft skills, right? But for me, become some very important ones would be leadership and followership. Everybody cannot be a leader. So along with the leader, you have to be a good follower as well. So, we talked about communication, culture, leadership, followership, and another really important thing for me is visualization. And I put that in soft skill bucket as well. And what that does is it allows me to think about what does future me look like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, and do I like that future me? And if I don't like it, then what do I have to change in today's me, right? So my future me, I would like my future me. It also helped me when I was building businesses, when I was building careers, is really what my future 3 years from now, how do I visualize myself? And this is where working with people, like for example, another soft skill I would say is conflict management, right? Because when I was doing customer support, I have a very good example in the book how entire LATA went down, and I had to work with the customers who told us to take all your equipment out and never talk to us again to buying new equipment, right? So conflict management was very important at that time, and difference between assertive and aggressive. That's also a really good soft skill because I think particularly for women, again, if you look at the stereotype, right? Women are just aggressive. They're fighters, right? They just fight, they argue, and they don't do things, right? So being assertive is become very critical skill for us as women. And so those would be some of the very critical. Then you can add teamwork, you can add time management. I mean, you can add ton of skills as soft skills as Google gives you on long list. But I would say there is always like 80-20 rule, right? So there are like top 6 or 8 skills, no more than 10, let's say, that make or break your career. And I think I rattle off probably 10 or at least 6 or 7. And the question becomes how you learn them, right? And to me, it's like how you learn them. First thing is awareness. It's like, okay, I need to be aware that I need to do X or be cognizant of X. And after that, it's really a matter of diving in and doing it. And and luckily, you or I was able to find environment that allowed me to make mistakes, right? And and even if you didn't have the environment that allowed you to make mistakes, I think you still can get away with it because you're learning from those mistakes. Your decision making gets better. So to me, yes, you can read as much as you want. I mean, hard skills are easy. Yes, you have to read. Yes, you have to study. But any other soft skills, I don't think you can. I mean, yes, you can read about it, but unless you try it, I don't think it works, or at least that's my experience. So I just pushed myself out. One of the things was just pushing me out of my comfort zone and say, okay, what can go wrong? Well, nothing can really go wrong, right? I mean, if I don't have it today, I don't have it today. So what can go wrong? Nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Those soft skills are very important, actually.
Yes, I personally think hard skills get you the job, get you in through the door. Soft skills help you keep the job, and soft skills help you to move up in your career. Because I even talked in the book the difference between a career and a job. Because job is like your single dimensional, right? Job is more like it. I learned mechanical engineering, so my job is in primarily mechanical engineering. Yes, I would move up to a certain extent in more evolutionary kind of fashion. I will probably stay primarily in my comfort zone because it's mechanical engineering and I'm touching a little bit on the side, but I'm not going out way out there somewhere, right? But if I'm thinking about a career, which is playing poker, then I'm always out of my comfort zone. I'm always doing something I've never done before. And that's where you get your more revolutionary kind of career. Well, comes with it some kind of stress, some level of risk, some level of strain. I mean, but every time you push your comfort zone, there is risk involved. Definitely. There is no doubt about it. But where do you not have to risk? No matter what you do, even in your mechanical engineering, you're taking risk, or whatever is your, study that you did, or whatever is your career path. Everything is going to have risk.
So, speaking about your book,
Uh-huh.
the book, it's you say it is autobiography, but I feel it is more of a guide to new generations, how to deal with the lot of things, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just your story, but it's about the corporate world, how to join, how to succeed, how to sustain. What made you write this book?
Well, actually, I got pushed into writing. As I said in the preface of the book, my cousin, my sister, my nephews, they saw a unique story and they were like, you have to write it. Then we'll figure out what happens to it after you write it. So that kind of got me to writing. But when I started writing, what I decided to do is not just to say year X, I did Y, year, whatever, go chronologically. I decided that I want to write in the story format. If I'm going to write it, I'm going to write it in the story format, a story or events. And and I'm going to write it such that I would like the reader at least to see themselves in one or two stories. So Gayatri can say, you know what? I can see myself in this. Or guess what? I just had that experience last week. Because that way you can relate to the reader, right? So that was kind of one thing that I was thinking about when I wrote it. Another thing I was thinking about when I wrote it was I'm used to questioning why all the time. So I was questioning me as well as to why I wanted to go, let's say, have a career and go out of comfort zone. right? So I was questioning myself as why. And if these days it's like five wives, you ask five wives, right? Go into into TQM and they tell you, okay, you get the root cause when you do five wives. I didn't know at that time, but regardless, I was questioning why I do this or why did I do this, and that is kind of self-evaluation and self-analysis. And I thought that was important because for a reader, they can at least understand what was going through my mind and therefore why I did certain things, like even the story of the cigar in the book, right? So I wrote down as to, in my mind, I was thinking this, right? And therefore I reacted in a certain way. And that reaction either succeeded or failed. And how did I learn from that failure? So you kind of learn about internals of my mind as well, and not just the event. So those were like two goals when I decided I was going to write. And I think that's why it may feel like it's a guidebook, right? But I like to really think about what I heard one time Zakir Hussain saying it, and I'm going to paraphrase that the river of knowledge is always flowing. So nobody's teaching anybody, or nobody's teaching. There is no student-teacher relationship, but student decide what they want to learn. So they decide how are they going to pick the water out of this flowing river of knowledge. Somebody may want to use a bucket, somebody may want to use a little spoon, somebody may want to use it, get to the corner of the river or whatever. And I really like that concept because I think what I did was I just took out and said, here is who I am, here is why I think what I think, and and you make the judgment, is that something appropriate for you if you want to learn from it, or maybe because I thought about certain things, you may not think the same way. You may not have, and what I did today or what I did yesterday may not work for me even today because situation has changed, context has changed. And if a different person tries to do it, then it's even more complicated because you need to be completely comfortable in your skin. But what you have here is one person has done this thing this way. At least gives you an opportunity. It's like, well, let me think about it. Maybe I can do it. So I'm hoping that's the kind of advice or maybe side impact or another impact of the book. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway that readers can take from the book.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So, any advice for the new generation, especially the engineers, the women who are immigrating?
Um, like I said, I don't want to give advice, but I would say that there are some three themes that I found very constant. That even if I moved from telecom to different industry verticals, one is soft skills, one is intelligent quotient, or intelligent, yeah, let's just say intelligent quotient, or emotional intelligence. Let's call it that way. And the third one will be creativity. So creative solutions, because think outside of the box, and you will it will be very easy to find something very unique that represents you. So that would be like one thing I would say, think about those three things. Another thing I would say is confidence, right? Because one of the soft skills I didn't mention earlier is self-confidence. So how do you build it? Some, let's say, Indian women or Indians working in India, particularly in rural community, may feel, I don't know how to speak English. Oh, that means I can't do anything. Well, that's okay. You can improve your English, right? So don't consider from barrier point of view, but consider from the point of view, how do I visualize myself? And therefore, what today's me can do to get to my, my ideal visualization, whatever that might be. And everybody will have a different visualization. Another thing I would say is decisions, right? Um, you proactively really need to take a decision, because if you don't, time will take it for you, or somebody else will take it for you, which may not be the decision that you wanted or would have liked. So it may not be the perfect decision, but it will be a perfect enough kind of decision, because there is no such thing as perfection. Um, so I feel that hard work is needed no matter what you're going to do. I in the book, I think I said something about a swan, right? It looks beautiful, kind of gliding on the water, but the swan is underwater, is like really chomping hard at the bits and moving very, very, very fast, doing a lot of hard work. So you're going to need the hard work, but you will look beautiful, like gliding. Others won't see the hard work. Make sure you understand your goals. So that's why and why not, right? Those are really two most critical things.
Yeah. So, lastly, what are your future plans now that you're retired or
Uh,
books?
that's a work in progress, right? What are my future plans? I really love to do some mentoring, but I may want to mentor. Nobody may want to be my mentee, right? So I really want to learn. The new generation is more on social media kind of generation. They grew up on social media, in Instagram and Facebook and whatever, TikTok is their life, right? So I'm kind of exploring right now. I want to understand and explore, is there any way there is a pool? Is there any way I can help them? And particularly in India, not necessarily in the US. So I'm considering spending more of my time in India than in the US. May not move to India, but maybe more time in India. And that's why I'm actually in India right now, to really learn what's going on today's India. I know 50 years ago India. And is there a pool in what I want to offer? And if there is a pool, how can I leverage it? How can I work on it? And if there isn't any, okay, there isn't any. I got a lot of things on my bucket list for my personal things, and then I will kind of focus 100% on that. Like I really want to learn singing. I want to be able to sing the old Bollywood songs that I love. So I'm a good listener. I always enjoyed music, but I never really learned to sing. So maybe that's something I'll do now. I don't know. We'll see. It's a work in progress. I'll answer this question 5 years from now and say, okay, I accomplished this, and now there is another work in progress.
Nice.
So phase one, phase two of retirement.
Yeah. So, thank you so much. Thank you for all your inputs. Thank you for your time. And I'm sure the readers will like the book, and the listeners will also enjoy this episode and get a lot of knowledge about corporate world and how to survive. Getting
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, we can survive, not only survive, thrive. We just have to put our mind to it. And thank you again for inviting me. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And thank you very much.